Hello everyone. Just give me a few seconds to set up all the streams. We're almost there. How's everyone doing? Hope you're okay.
Esto no es otra plataforma.
Whoops. I'm sorry.
I was overcome with emotion.
Perder la realidad.
These ads, man. Okay. Hey Sunny, how's it going? Alright, I think it's all good. Yep. Okay, so for those of you who were here last time, I was struggling a lot with this part of the design, and it's pretty much the only thing missing. I went ahead and finished this part of the body, like the hind legs, and a couple other details. Like I think I'd rebuilt the whole leg off stream. I don't remember exactly, but we're pretty much almost there with this guy. So I'm gonna finish this area, just like detail it a little bit more. You can see here in the front. I mean, it's not super detailed, but I just want to give it like a little bit of personality and things like that. And yep. Hello. Yeah, I'm not one of the I'm not a part of the Pixologic team, but yeah, I guess because you can learn some things. Hello. Okay. So, oh, and after this, like, I'll explain more as I keep working on it. But for now, I'm just going to finish this part of the design. Give it a bit more. I might need, yeah, I think since we'll be working on this part, I think I'll just go to the higher subdivision level to have a bit more definition here. I just want to make sure that I keep rotating it to see it like from all these angles, because I don't want it just to look good from here. I'm very sometimes very particular with shapes, and I don't want like wobbly shapes or I don't really like when things the term I used to say before was like, I don't want it to look like it's just like a blob of plastiline or just like clay. I want it to look not rigid, but sturdy, I guess is the word. I want shapes to look clean, and so it's important for me to not have this type of wobbly surface. So I'm just gonna go ahead and try and level. I mean, it's everything manual. I also don't want it to look. I want it to look clean and and precise, but also like it was hand sculpted. So I'm not using like alphas or pre-made patterns for this. I feel like hand sculpting things gives you a lot of freedom to experiment. So in this case, I'm just making sure that the shapes are clean and readable. And like I said, I was struggling a lot last time here. I didn't know how to solve the shapes, how to connect everything, and had to like to get off this model and come back later, like a couple of days later, and then suddenly like everything was there. So it's pretty useful tip when you feel stuck with something. I have my refs here on the other monitor, and sometimes what I do is, like for example, I took a screenshot of the head, which shapes I really liked, and then that's my ref for this part. Of course, I have other stuff like salamanders and actual critters, but it's also like cool. It's like a way to preserve the same style or line of design, I guess you could say. Also in this area is like pretty not leveled, so I'm going to try and level everything as well. This part, probably just gonna flatten it. At this point, also, I don't want to go too crazy with the detail because the whole thing is pretty much done, and I don't think it's worth it to spend a lot of time focusing on just a little area of the hip. I mean, of course, it's important for consistency's sake. You want things to look the same level of quality all around, especially if you're building the whole sculpt, which is what I'm doing. There's some cases where you only need to build like the front or just a specific part, but in this case, like I want to build the whole thing. So I'm focusing, like you could say, I'm focusing on like secondary and tertiary shapes. and not so much on surface detail. Surface detail, it's gonna be pretty much non-existent, I think. I want shapes to be readable, and I don't want to distract the eye with like unnecessary pores and small wrinkles and like all that visual noise that sometimes can happen, like when you clutter a model too much. That's what I don't want right now. Hey Moments, hello all the way to India. How's it going? Glad you could join me today while I finish this thing. How I use thick skin? No, I don't think so. Um, I don't remember exactly what thick skin is. I don't think I have. So please remind me what that is, because sometimes I forget the name of the tools and which tool does what. Also, I'm trying to use a lot of the standard brush. I feel like it's really clean sometimes for like lines like this. Make shapes look clean. This is still pretty dirty here. But I'm gonna try and not pay too much attention to that. So like here, for example, I want this shape to like come from the belly, loop around here, and make a cut. Like make this shape very defined, and then continue here, and then extend. So I need maybe with clay build up and a little bit of standard. Can just follow it and then merge it with like these wrinkles that are happening at the base of the tail. Yeah. You can create topology on top of the model. Oh yeah, I remember which tool it is. I've seen it, but I haven't used it. Oh, that's actually that's pretty useful. I might try it. I'm gonna try it later because I think it can be useful for this type of things. Thank you for the tip. Yes, so if you can see, I have symmetry on the x-axis, which is the standard one. It's like, I'm gonna bet like when you work in ZBrush, 99.9% of the time you're gonna have this symmetry on. Sometimes you want symmetry to be on the y-axis. Sometimes you want it to be on the z-axis, like front and back. Useful tip, if you turn on, if you press Shift P and you turn on the floor, you can see the axis. It used to be harder to see, but now it's pretty clear. Or we have it also here. So the z-axis is always going to be pointing to the front, or it should be pointing to the front. And then you have the x-axis to the side, and the y-axis to the like up and down. And if you're curious how you like change the symmetry stuff, if you've never used ZBrush before, or like you're starting, you go to transform, and then you have this space, activate symmetry, and you turn it on and off with the X key. That's like the default hotkey. It's pretty easy. So, and then you can change stuff. There's also radial symmetry, which I'm not really going to go into right now because we don't need to, but it's basically a circumference. Like you can build symmetric stuff around circles and things like that, which is pretty useful. It's pretty useful for cylindrical stuff. Hey Bilal, how's it going? Yeah, ZBrush is a really cool software to learn when you're starting. I mean, ZBrush in general is a really cool software to learn, even if you're already a veteran. I know some artists that have years of experience and then they're just starting to pick up ZBrush or are planning to pick up ZBrush in the near future, and it's a great tool. It lets you do a lot of things with geometry. I think it has the main purpose of ZBrush. I think it has evolved a lot throughout the years. It used to be mainly for, I mean, at the very beginning, I think it used to be like for 2.5D type illustrations, like an illustration with like depth, and then it became like the standard sculpting tool, and now it's pretty much the standard for next to it's a standard in the industry next to like a 3D package for any type of geometry manipulation. I would say it's not only for sculpting anymore. You can do a lot of things with it, which is why it's so useful. Want to puff this area a little bit more. Make it look like it's like a muscle running down. Something like that, and then just have the edge start to melt into the shape. Yeah, kind of like that. Hey Kitty, what's up? Welcome to the stream. So I have polygroups, but since this is a tricky area because it's the union between the leg and then the torso, like the hip and the rest of the body, and then the base of the tail. So that's why I decided to just do the selection instead of just isolating a single polygroup, because it's going to be crossing over polygroup borders. So and then I just rotate around to see how it looks, to see if the shapes are readable from different angles, with different lighting, different mudkips, to see if there's something to fix. Like here, for example, you can just smooth. Can we make scales as tool for sculpting process? Yes, you can. Like for example, I'm gonna show you a really quick way to make like scales, and then you can just go further into like as further as you want to go with like the detailing. But like let's say for example you want to cover this thing in scales, which I don't, but let's say you do want to. Oh yeah, here's my water. Yeah, sometimes I get like dry mouth. Okay. So I'm gonna start with a new tool, and I'm gonna just roughly shape it into activate symmetry, make it polymesh 3D first, activate symmetry, then we'll just like do some scales. And then go with a Dynamesh one. Let's say this is scale number 1, and then we're gonna duplicate the subtool and make it a shorter one. More rounder. And then duplicate again. And this one is gonna be a long one. I mean, these are really bad scales, but you get the point. So let's say we have these things. Each scale is its own subtool. And then what you're going to do is select the top one and go for brush. And then create. And then create insert multi-mesh. If you just have like one subtool, you can just create insert mesh. But if you have multiple, you can do create insert multi-mesh. And what this is going to do is create a brush in which each subtool is going to be a different insert mesh that you can put on top of a given model. Why not use an alpha? Because alphas are not perfect, and sometimes you also want to have like different options. Alphas are pretty useful, but like on their own, you can always tell if someone just used an alpha. Like if you see a sculpt, you can immediately tell like, oh, that person just used an alpha on top of the surface and left it like that and didn't work it further. So if you want to use alphas, my recommendation is to do it like 50-50. Start with an alpha, create the base, and then hand sculpt to improve upon the detail that the alpha gives you. I think that's the best way to do it. I think that's what most people do when you're sculpting with alphas. And relying too much on alphas when you're just starting, I think it's a crutch in the end, because I've seen so many people like depend too much or rely too much on alphas, and then the sculpt, it doesn't look good. Like you're skipping sometimes steps in the shapes order. So let's say you have, and I'm going off on a tangent, but I think this is important for those of you who are interested in this thing. I think it's important. When you're building something, you start with basic shapes or basic volumes, and let's call them primary shapes. So if you could deconstruct this model into its primary shapes, most of these would be cylinders. So like you could say the torso is a cylinder. The tail, of course, is a cylinder. The thigh, the legs. The head might be, you can use like a flattened square or something, I don't know. It's just the very basic volumes that you start with. And then I would say secondary and tertiary shapes would be the shapes that give personality to the other thing. If you start with a cylinder and then you start building, like for example, let's say the torso is a cylinder, right? But then you build, I don't know, like this shape. You give the rib cage, and then you sculpt in the abdomen, and then the loin muscle and the back muscles, and then on top of that you start building like all these detail. Those are secondary and tertiary shapes. And then you have surface detail. And hey, our sculpts, thank you, man. Thanks so much, I appreciate it. Yeah, so afterwards you have the surface detail, and then for surface detail you can have like pores and small wrinkles and like any other type of detail that you want. And that's when alphas are useful. But I've seen so many people just like go from primary shapes immediately to alphas, and then you have like this very boring, flat, uninteresting shape covered with details, and like you're missing all the intermediate stuff. you're missing all the intermediate stuff that's giving the personality. So don't rely too much on alphas. But again, it's really useful for when you know what you're doing. You can start with an alpha of scales, for example, and then build on top of that. And so, okay, yeah, what I was gonna show with the scales. So you have your thing, your subtools, and then you go to brush, create insert multi-mesh, and it creates a brush where each of the subtools is a new like insert mesh. So if we go back to this thing, I think it has to be the whole thing visible. It's gonna insert them. I'm not sure it's gonna be able because I have subdivision levels, but yeah, I need to delete subdivision levels. But let's say you start like with a sphere. Again, make polymesh 3D, subdivide a little bit, and then you have this brush. You can start. Oh yeah, delete lower. You can start adding in the scales. And then this thing, what happens is that whatever is you're inserting, it's the only thing that's going to be unmasked, and then everything else is going to be masked, and then you can just manipulate individually things that, like whatever you need. And so this is really useful if you have the time and actually like or like take the time to sculpt a proper scale. You can do a lot of things with it. You can have like an insert multi-mesh with a ton of different scales. And actually, that's not a bad idea. I might do that eventually. But that's the way it functions. So why I'm not using scales, because I want to sculpt the everything like directly on top of this. And I want to mainly focus on like don't want to put much emphasis on surface detail because I'm not interested in that. I want shapes to be clean and readable, and so this is like the most detail that it's going to have, because I want things to like to flow. Let me go through the comments real quick. Thanks, Jimmy. Welcome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So yeah, let me see if I can show you the ref board. It's nothing extraordinary or anything, really. I think I have to load it here on OBS, but I can do it. No, maybe not. Because the thing is, pure ref, I don't think it's getting detected as a window. Color display. I guess I can show a display. I'm such a boomer with computers. I don't know how to do that, man. No, I'm not French. I'm Mexican. But I do speak a little bit of French. So display. Yeah. There we go. So I don't know if you guys see it. I just put my PREF on top of ZBrush. This is what my monitor looks like, and this is my ref board. This is really nothing extraordinary. I have just like a bunch of salamander and ajolotl stuff, and here I have screenshots of like the same creature, just to have the reference of how the shapes are flowing. Like this one, for example, is from the arm, so I could build the leg, stuff like that. And just like it's a combination of references and inspiration, because I'm not actually following a concept, so I just want stuff to look at while I'm building. Like gives me ideas to just flow, go with it. Yeah, that's it. Quick way to show the ref board. The one on top right, I think it's like a prehistoric beast. I don't know, I just found it on Google Images. It says most of the big amphibians went extinct, including the boomerang-headed Diplocaulus. if you're interested. That's the name of the thing. And yeah, I always try to have reference from nature. I think it's really useful to not go crazy sometimes with a design that like eventually makes no sense. No worries. I try to aim like since my computer is not super like beefy. I have a pretty powerful laptop, but it's still not like as powerful as like a proper desktop. And I'm upgrading soon. But I've been moving a lot, and so having a laptop has been way easier than to just move around a big computer. But I try to aim somewhere under 30 million active points usually. Like for performance on my machine, that works well. Although sometimes I go higher. I think with most things you don't really need much more. Oh, the hammerhead salamander? Oh, let me see. Oh, this is cool. Oh, this is really nice. Is this thing alive today? Like, does this creature exist nowadays, or it's just like a? No, it's a prehistoric creature, right? It can't be real. Oh, I think it's just a figure. Oh, this is really cool. Thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, sometimes it's really insane. I keep trying sometimes to think of or like coming up with new creatures, and I keep finding that everything I can imagine, it's based off of something that already exists in the natural world. Like it's really hard to come up with something from scratch if it didn't exist. I think in my case, like I can come up with crazy stuff, but I personally would feel that I'm no longer looking at like an actual creature. If I go like too crazy with like anatomy or shapes that sometimes don't make sense. But that's just me. That might be like a limit on my imagination. That I like the natural world so much, and I like to see animals, and I like to study evolution and things like that. That I think my brain immediately tries to make sense of all that stuff. And so I think in terms of that. Oh, it's alive right now? That's really cool. Yeah, I know. It's just that sometimes I'm guessing it happens to everyone. Like you look at some artwork and then you're like, holy shit, how does this person come up with this design? Like it's just insane. Um, I am from Mexico. Well, I wasn't born here, but have lived in Mexico for like over 25 years of my life. I was living in Montreal recently, last year, and then I moved back into Mexico. And then I'll probably move out again sometime in the near future, but who knows? We'll see. And here I'm just playing with shapes. At this point, I like to just go like closer and then see what types of shapes I can come up with that like look cool, make sense. This creature is supposed to be like a deity, like a god, like a salamander god. So I feel like I can go crazy with some things that a normal creature I couldn't, like all these ornaments and stuff. Olingido? What is that? Is this like a primate? Primate? Because it kind of looks like a mouse, but like a rodent, but I'm pretty sure it's closer to primates than rodents. It might be, I don't know. This is cool. Thanks, man, for the suggestions. How did I start in my 3D career? I went to school and I got a degree in animation. But like since the very beginning, my preferences were towards modeling and sculpting, like very very early on. And then I got a job in Mexico, and I was at a studio for around 3 years, like as a generalist. I did a bunch of stuff. I did animation, some sculpting, some modeling, some rendering. I even did like post-production and rotoscoping at one point. And then after that, I just went into like full into modeling, like I mean assets, modeling, texturing, that type of stuff. And I've been working like across industries as a modeler, texture artist since. But sculpting is definitely the thing that I enjoy the most. It's unfortunately some of the things that I don't get to do as often or in a way that I would like. Because sometimes projects are very specific and you don't have a lot of freedom to explore. Yeah, that's true. Everyone would interpret a cat differently. That's a good point. Everyone has their own perspective on things. That's true. Just make this one a bit cleaner. Saludos, Ches, hasta Costa Rica. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much, man. Oh, it's like a bear? Yeah, because I was really surprised sometimes to see the very early ancestor of primates. They kind of look like rodents. So, and I guess that's why people use mice and rats for experiments and bunnies and stuff. Because I guess like genetically we're pretty similar. Like lately, I kind of been very interested in early humans and like this whole idea of the origin of our species and how we came to be like the civilization we are now and how that relates to our animal ancestors. Like we're animal, of course, but if you think in terms of human versus animal. And I've been like it's been a huge source of inspiration. I've been sculpting a lot of imaginary primates, and it's been a fun like study imagination exercise, I guess. ¿Qué onda, Sergio? Saludos. ¿Cómo andas? ¿Todo bien? So I have the fin here. It's pretty much done. You just want to like polish it just a tiny bit more, just to make it look cleaner. But I'm pretty much done. Like if you go further enough, like further, like far away enough, you can read the shapes. And like there's really not much there to it. ¿Para qué quieres eso, güey? Saludos. Saludos hasta... ¿Dónde andas? ¿En Vancouver? Ah, choro. Muchas gracias, Sergio. Okay, so I'm gonna switch to Spanish sometimes during the stream. I hope that's okay. Because I used to do the bilingual streams and sometimes just do like Spanish streams and I know that people who speak Spanish sometimes watch my streams, And so I hope people who don't speak Spanish don't mind. I'm still like going to try and mostly do it in English, but it's cool to see sometimes people come in here uh, from Mexico or elsewhere who speak Spanish. Oh, your inner fish? Yeah, I've heard that before. Like we're all fish. Um, Originally we're just like evolved. And if you go enough generations back, yeah, we were all fish once. No, I'm not gonna animate it. Humans are an invasive species, far removed from the original context. Yeah, you could argue that. You could argue that for sure. You could also argue that whatever happened to us in the cognitive revolution, like whatever gave us the ability to think in terms of abstractions and like create fictions, is what enabled us to be the super civilization, like the super global civilization we are now. But it also didn't, like our brains didn't catch up with that in a way that um, would allowed us to would have allowed us to imagine all the things we were going to be able to achieve. And so in a way, the way that enabled us to grow so much might be our own doom in the end. If you want to see it like that, like we were not prepared for how big our brains became and how intelligent we would eventually be. And I guess like it's kind of our task right now, like current generation's job, to teach that to new generations and to try and find a balance. Like sometimes like progress is really hard to undo. It's like a lot of things we have already done, it can't be undone, but we can sort of plan for the future and organize ourselves better and take care of our own species and the other species in the planet better, both plants and animals. I'm not sure. Are they the only ones that destroy their own home? I'm not sure. Like I'm just asking. ¿Qué onda, Alexander? Saludos. Saludos hasta México. Oh man, so many new species. I'm gonna just take the names and Google them afterwards, but this is really cool. Thank you so much, man. Hey, Sirax. Saludos hasta Guayaquil. Fui a Guayaquil en el 2010. Tuve la fortuna de conocer la ciudad. Un buen amigo es de Guayaquil. Conocí Guayaquil y Quito. Buen viaje, estuvo cool. Bueno, el encebollado de por allá. Comiendo en un carrito así en la calle. I feel like we got to a point where we got to such a point of complacency. We're slightly regressing. Yeah, I mean it's hard because I think we've offset a lot of cognitive load into computers now. Like just for example, I'm pretty sure everyone can relate to this, but when I was a kid, I knew by heart like my phone number, like my house phone number, and then my like I don't know my best friend's phone number and a bunch of other stuff. And since we have cell phones and you just like save it there, that part of my memory is no longer useful, and I can't remember. I don't know like my wife's phone number, for example, by heart. I just know like the last digits, but it's and so yeah, in a way we're kind of dependent on technology for a lot of stuff. If there was like a reset into the world, I think a lot of people would be unprepared for that, and then it would be slowly we would have to slowly build off of like the foundation again. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, apparently like Neanderthals had bigger brains than us. Yeah, but very sure nature's trying to stop us, that's true. Isn't that like a crab, Jimmy? I'm pretty sure I've seen this one before. I think it's like a crab. And I saw a video recently, very interesting, how a lot of like crustaceans tend to evolve into crab-like beings. It's something with the shape that's useful. Okay, so finally, the body is complete. It's finally done. I like how it looks. I think it has enough areas of detail and enough areas of rest. And that's what you want in anything basically that you sculpt. You want to have a balance of detail and not detail. And I kind of want to go and just like detail further the face, but that's like just me. I'm gonna try and stop myself from doing that. But like I think I really liked in the beginning as instead of these things that axolotls have, that I don't know the names. I'm sometimes really bad with like body parts, the names of stuff. But I created horns instead of these like gills. But I kind of want to look. I kind of want them to look like the original axolotl. So like if you see here in the what's the name of this thing? Like the thumbnail of the project, you can see how the silhouette is reading, like with these tiny extrusions. I think it looks good, so I'm gonna try and integrate them into the rest of the horns. I wanna, like these extrusions, I want them to look fully integrated. Let me see the messages, because there were a lot of messages. Hey Mucat, gracias. Saludos hasta España. Bienvenida al stream. Sí, pues yo soy originalmente de México, pero he vivido en Canadá, en Estados Unidos y llevo ya varios años de haber aprendido inglés, entonces pues supongo que simplemente la práctica. Pero muchas gracias. Sweet Tooth? No idea. I'm gonna note that to check it out later. Yeah, like I'm pretty sure we're going to be dependent more and more on technology. Like in a way, I sometimes say half joking, half serious that we should already, like we should accept our machine overlords and submit to them. And what I mean by this is like sometimes, oh man, I don't know if I should touch this topic or not, but like let's say humans are pretty bad at figuring out what is good for ourselves. Let's just leave it at that. And sometimes numbers don't lie, and if we look at ourselves as if we were making an experiment with vermins or like rats, and we looked at ourselves from like a third eye, like a bird's eye point of view, and looked at like instead of individuals, we looked at a whole species and the numbers and like statistics, I'm pretty sure we could figure things out in a way that benefits us better than just, I don't know, like making an effort or like trying to consciously change things, you know, like we should maybe start thinking in terms of we are biological machines. Oh shit, sorry. We're biological machines, and then we should learn how to hack our own biology for our own good. And by that I also mean like our brains. How can we trick ourselves so the incentives work in our favor, you know? I think we should start thinking in terms of that instead of trying to be good people or make an effort or and I'm like, I don't know if I'm making any sense. Am I making any sense? Thank you, peasant. Present. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So yeah, I want these horns to be like I want these extrusions to look natural, like coming out of the main shape. Probably not gonna worry too much how they look from the back, although I maybe should because this looks pretty bad, but it looks better. So I might just have to spend a little bit more time on that area, but it's okay. Yeah, plastic is an interesting thing because plastic is such a resistant and versatile material that it's really weird that we use it for packaging and then we just discard it. We should build stuff with plastic. We should like build houses with plastic and cars and I don't know, maybe this is really dumb. I'm not an engineer, but I feel like plastic should be used for other stuff, but not just like producing waste. At least we're using some plastics now for 3D printing, which is nice. You're building something that's supposed to be like more permanent. It's pretty easy to hack your health. Just stop eating animals and starting more plant whole foods. Vegans, blah blah blah, 70% more mild COVID symptoms. Higher chance. Um, I mean, I don't know. That might be true. I just think, um, I just think balance is the key to everything. I don't think eating meat is necessarily bad for health or the planet. We just need to find a way to make it not damaging for ourselves or the planet. I agree that we shouldn't eat that much meat as we are doing right now as a species, for example. But our own biology, like we evolved as omnivores because that's what allowed us to survive in many different climates and under many different conditions. And probably it was eating animal fats was what allowed us to have such big brains. So, like compared to other animals. So I don't know, yeah, like I think balance is the key to everything. But I definitely think like people, yeah, should lower meat consumption like drastically. Oh man, so many messages. I think that that number of like average life expectancy of 30 years, I think it has a catch. If I remember correctly, I remember I read it once that it was that number because there was a lot of child mortality. Like there was a lot of babies that were born and then died really, really young, or like kids who died really young. And so when you take into account for the average number, the average life expectancy was like around 30, but people who, like even ancient humans could live way past 30, I think. If I remember correctly, I think that was the case. But yeah, definitely like I think we have the knowledge as a species and the tools to have healthier, longer lives. We just need to put it into practice. We just need to submit to the numbers and start building better habits, I think. So yeah, I like the horns a lot more here. I like how they look. They're giving a more interesting shape to everything. Just need to integrate a little bit more in the back to make everything um, look natural. I think I want you guys to think of a farm. I think I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think the model of a farm is really useful for understanding how we should live in balance with nature, I think. Because on a farm you grow stuff, right? Like you grow vegetables and stuff. And it's usually a good idea to grow vegetables. But then you have like plagues or or you need some fertilizer. So it's really a good idea sometimes to have chickens because they can eat the bugs that would damage the plants, and then they can poop stuff that you can use as fertilizer for the plants. And then when you have chickens, you have an additional source of food in case you need it. Like you have eggs, and then you can have the meat as well. And you can do the same thing with like cows, for example, as a source of dairy if you want, or like different types of animals that you can use for labor or for consumption. But in the end, everything works like in balance with nature in a small ecosystem that's the farm. I think like large scale production of any type of food, like beef or pork or like grains, is really damaging to the ecosystem because when you have like monocultures or like one type of vegetable or like just one type of grain on an area, like the soil doesn't really like that, and it gets depleted of nutrients eventually. And when you like, I also hate like large scale animal farming, and it's, I don't know, I think like the the key is to go lower scale, like have smaller localized farms but have a ton of them. I don't know if that makes sense. I think that's a way that we could try and start solving this issue. With this one I'm using the snake hook, which is really useful for pulling out shapes like this. Hey Hasin, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. It's a wild debate you guys are having here. Cool, nice. Means you're free now. ¿Qué onda, Cristel? ¿Qué dice la vida? So let's look at the thumbnail again. And this is what I want. Like I want. Also, I forgot to say, but like whenever you're sculpting or modeling something, silhouette is super important. Silhouette is super important because it's like the first thing that a person is going to see about the whatever it is you're doing. So you always need to have silhouette in mind, very much, I would say, and then make sure that everything is readable. Make sure that everything is looking good, and then you can go crazy with the detail. But if the silhouette doesn't work, it's because you have some problems with your main shapes. So if you guys are modelers or sculptors, be very mindful of having a good silhouette in whatever it is you're doing. You can be a creature, can be a character, can be a car. If you're building environments, if you're doing like buildings, think about the silhouette. Think about how it's reading from a viewer point of view. Super important. Sí, sí, si somos sinceros, creo que dibujar en Paint es más difícil que esculpir en ZBrush, pero esa es mi percepción. He visto unos dibujos en Paint que digo, no más, esto está increíble. Pero Paint es mucho más limitado por lo mismo, entonces siento que tal vez sea más fácil esculpir en ZBrush que dibujar en Paint. And at this point, I'm really not sure what I'm doing in terms of like design. I'm following like I guess like just the idea of these things looking like bone in a way. Like you know how most horns from many animals are like a bony structure. If you think of deers, for example, it sort of looks like a mix between bones and then like tree bark. So I'm just trying to make it look like it's hard surface, like it's hard. But it's like since this animal is like a divine creature, I also want it to look like ornament. I'm missing the words here. I want it to look like royal, like regal. I don't know how to say it. So trying to follow some patterns, trying to create like a rhythm of shapes and trying to make the shapes like attractive to the eye in a way. Hey Orlando, how's it going? Thanks Jimmy. Yeah, I would also really like to be able to have creatures like this in games. Like, have you played Shadow of the Colossus? It's one of my favorite games, and I love the creature design. I love the design of the colossi. I think that's how you say colossus in plural. They look like a mix between creatures and ancient statues with both organic and rocky elements to them. They're pretty amazing looking. If anyone hasn't played that game, I strongly recommend it. It's originally from PlayStation 2, but it came like they did a remake for PlayStation 3, and then there's another remake for PS4, like a full-on remake. I would go for that one. Yes, +1 on the naked chimps, hairless primates. It's really amazing when you see hairless primates when you realize how pretty much exactly they look like us. It's amazing. It's pretty much the only thing that changes is the face, but the rest of the body is like exactly the same. And then when I had the opportunity to study a little bit of comparative anatomy, and then you start noticing like patterns and equivalences in like animal anatomy and human anatomy, and like when you understand, for example, where horses have their knees and where they have their toes and feet and how that relates to humans, it's really amazing. You start to like, your mind opens up, and that's really good for like creatures. I think if you want to do creatures, you really need to study human and animal anatomy at the same time, because you're gonna learn so much more than just studying animals or just studying humans, and then you can combine things in many different ways. Muchas gracias, Orlando. Llevo trabajando en 3D ya 10 años. Ya llevo un buen rato. Empecé en el 2011. A really interesting anatomy fact that I know, and it's really funny because my wife gets very annoyed by that, is that because I like to repeat it a lot, because not many people know that, and it's really like, I'm not sure I'm gonna say like mind-blowing, but it's kind of like a curious fact. But I don't know if you guys knew that dogs, they don't have collarbones like us. Like this bone that we have here, clavicula in Spanish, dogs don't have that. And so they have many similar muscles than us, like just in different shapes and positions. But they don't have that, so their anatomy works differently. That's why you can't, like, when you take a dog like in front of you and then you pull the legs apart, they struggle, like their legs look like this because they don't have this connection. So it's really weird how we share so many things with other species, but there's also like unique features to every animal. Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's the way they evolved, I guess. Or like another, I'm pretty sure most of you already know this, but another thing is when I heard a lot of people say at one point that birds and like dinosaurs have the knees backwards. And it's not really that they have the knees backwards, it's just that their knees are higher up. And what we're thinking of as the knee is actually the talon of the animal, because we're not seeing the full picture. And like if you think of a bird, the knees are like hidden on the on the on the body, like on top of the body. Yeah, yeah. You like it's a cool trivia tip to know. Exacto. What Orlando's saying, it's true that dogs actually they walk on their toes. Like if you see the comparative anatomy, imagine this is the floor, and like the dog would be walking like this instead of using the whole hand as support. They're just walking on top of the toes, or like or the fingers. And then, for example, horses have all the fingers fused into the hoof. So it's really interesting to learn comparative anatomy. I would really recommend you guys to do some animal studies at least once. Like try and sculpt the muscles of a dog or the muscles of a lion, like an écorché type of thing. It would really give you a lot of perspective on anatomy. So I'm looking how it's looking. I'm liking how it's looking. I'm sorry. Not sure if this horns here at the bottom are very readable. If I'm gonna try and make the little horns pull a bit downwards. I guess I have to just for completion's sake, because it's not gonna be really very visible, but just try and polish a little bit more here at the back. Hello, I'm gonna try and pronounce your name. Shokan. Sokan. I'm hoping I'm saying it right. Welcome, dude, to the stream. Greetings all the way to Iran. No, I'm not gonna rig it, but I'm probably just gonna C-sphere rig it for the pose. Or I don't know. Like this is what I was like talking with my wife about this earlier, but I have this thing where this thing started as a, oh, let's just do a cool illustration about like a cool creature, right? And then as I'm working on it, I feel like, oh, I kind of want to finish this thing as a like a game asset. I wanted to retopologize it and texture it and pose it and whatnot. And so I'm probably going to do that, but first I'm going to focus on just like the final image. I want to build an image first, and then after that's done, I might go and finish this as a full asset, and then I might rig it. Who knows? I don't know. Any tips on live sculpting? What do you mean by live sculpting? Like you mean like with a model, sculpting like a live model, or sculpting live to an audience? What do you mean by that? For likeness, oh, likeness is tricky because depending on how precise you want to be with likeness, you actually need to measure stuff and to, unless you're like super good and can like read shapes really well without references. But for likeness, like it's really particular. I would say start from big and then go to small. If you want to sculpt someone you know, or like yourself, or like a portrait of some famous person, I would say start with the main shape. take the photo or the reference or whatever it is you're using of that person, and then just look at the silhouette. Look at the shape of the head. Look at the shape of the nose from the profile. Um, Look at the big shapes first. Imagine you're looking at this, the thumbnail, right? Look at the silhouette, and then after that, go smaller. Go like, okay, now cheekbones. Now like the brow ridge, the lips, um, the eyelids, etc., etc. And then after that, just go like into the minutia, or like I don't know if that person has a like a birthmark or particular mole or scars, things like that. But like, and this is with almost anything, but always try and start building things from the bigger shapes and go smaller from there. Hey Dinesh, greetings to India, man. I would like to visit India sometime. Mostly for the food. I really want to try a lot of Indian cuisine, like the real stuff. Hopefully, after this whole COVID nightmare is under control, it would be easier to travel. Because I want to go to so many places. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a bit frustrating to not be able to travel as much. Okay, so I'm going to start with something else right now. I'm going to save this. And what I'm going to start building is just some little creatures. Because the idea that I have in my mind is, imagine this thing is like a salamander god, and it's just swimming around in the same place where like normal creatures live. But I also don't want this creature to be from our world. I'm imagining it from like a parallel version of Earth, if you will. So I'm gonna start building. I'll probably do it just here, so we can see the comparison. But I'm gonna start building like a small-ish salamander to replicate. Like imagine this creature is like swimming among many regular tiny creatures, you know? So just gonna start with Dynamesh, probably lower. I like to start with 32 because it's super low, but when you're starting, I think it's the best way to control your shapes. Mainly because there's not enough resolution to create more, you know? So like the resolution is limiting. It's also, okay, this is a tangential tip, but whenever you can, putting artificial limits on things, it's actually a good idea sometimes. So like if you want to focus on primary shapes, limit the amount of resolution that you have. If you want to finish something on a given deadline, limit yourself by the amount of time that you have. Like things like that, for example, I think it's useful to think in terms of limiting yourself in certain areas. Constraints, like I feel like some of the best video games of the past were created that way because of like technological limitations. You had to be more creative with how you spend the resources. Hello. I'll probably need to increase the resolution a bit more because this is really low. And so the idea I have is this one, right? Like, just have like regular creatures all around. Whoops. Like swimming right next to him, right? Stuff like that. Yeah, I know. I know what you guys are thinking. Please don't say it on stream. I'm not gonna say it. I know what everyone is thinking. So, Lorraine, the reason why a lot of people retopologize manually is because as useful as ZRemesh is, it's not perfect. And it's getting better and better with each release, I find. Like the new one is really good for hard surface things. The new version of ZBrush, or like the new version of the ZRemesh. And like if you see this guy, I did use ZRemesh for him. I'm gonna go to the lowest subdivision. So I did use ZRemesh for this one, and it gave me pretty good results for what I needed. But it's not perfect. And sometimes you want more precision on specific shapes. Like I'm gonna give you an example. Faces, like if you see, this is the eye, and the topology that I have right now, it's not useful for animation. If I wanted to animate this, I would have to have the loops around the eyelid so it can close and open when you rig it. And in that case, it's much easier if you do it manually than trying to make it with ZRemesh. It's not impossible. You can certainly do it, but it takes a bit of tinkering with it. Like you might need to use like adaptive resolution or draw some guides or maybe make some polygroups to define the borders. And so sometimes it's easier to just retoping manually. And like for example, I worked in animation, and animation you need to be very precise, like feature animation. You need to be very precise with the topology because it's going to be rigged and because you're not going to rely on baking maps to make the details, right? Like in video games, you can just retopo the main shape and have all the details transfer from the high res to the low res via baking a normal map. But in animation, and I guess like VFX to an extent as well. Well, it depends, but at least in animation, if you want to have like a wrinkle here forming like around the nostril, you need to model that actual topology. Like the topology needs to be able to create that shape. That's why a lot of people tend to sculpt. Where's this guy? I mean to retopologize manually because it's more precise. That's the answer. It might not be faster, but it's definitely more precise. Hey Damien, yeah, I definitely have some days, and the worst part is I've had some days like that when I have to stream, and it's like, now what? What do I do? Um, I have moments like that all the time. It's sometimes work can drain your creative muscle, or yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's hard, but I guess like the answer is to just do it. I'm gonna give an example from my own life, but I used to compete in swimming. I used to train every day, like 2-3 hours, 6 times a week, and then on weekends go to competitions and tournaments and stuff like that. It's been a long time. I was when I was a teenager, but there were definitely some days where I didn't want to go to training, but I did anyway. And like you go to training even if you're tired and even if you're like sad or angry or happy or whatever. And at one point you just start doing the same movements or the same routine or the same whatever that you're used to, and you start like getting into the flow of things. And I think that's the same for when you're making art. Um, there's gonna be many days where you don't want to do it, but you just like sit down and open ZBrush and start sculpting whatever. And eventually, if you just like stick with it for like 10-15 minutes, it'll just click. Like you just need to do it. I know there's no easy answer to that, like easy formula, or like, oh, do this and drink that and read this or whatever, or listen to this. You just have to make it a habit. That's the thing. If you make it a habit, then you're gonna be able to work even if on days that you don't feel like it. And since this is a very demanding industry, you need to make it a habit, because there's gonna be a lot of days where you don't want to do anything, but you have to anyway. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Massimiliano, how's it going? Yeah, it kind of looks like a baby lizard. I'm having like axolotls here to look at, all derpy and stuff. I want to have these little creatures like swim around him. I kind of like how the axolotl has like the little smile, or it looks like it has a smile. And then since we're almost done with this shape, so I just need to extract the fingers, but it's getting harder with this resolution, so I'm gonna go again a bit higher. And then we're probably gonna remesh this one to make it look like, or to have it like with a usable geometry. But yeah, I remember a couple of times in Montreal, after, I don't know, like I had to stream, I was streaming at night, so I had to stream at like 7, and it was like a particularly hard day at work, and I was tired, and then I had to leave, rushing to get home to be able to like reach it on time, and I was tired, like mentally and physically tired, and I just wanted to play some video games or watch Netflix or whatever, and but it was just like, okay, just 2 hours, let's get done with it. And eventually something came out of the whatever I was trying to sculpt, you know. And yeah, you sort of have to force it sometimes. A mom? That would be funny. What do you mean, Tamil language? Is that a language in India or something like that? So these guys, for some reason, only have 4 fingers or 4 toes in the back legs. That's what I'm gonna do. Don't know why. Any method is a good one. Abhijit, I hope I said your name right. I would recommend if you're just starting, probably start with a C-sphere, because C-spheres provide you with a structure from the get-go, and you can modify that structure pretty easily. But if you're experienced enough, and I'm not saying I am, but just like a preference of mine, I sometimes just start from a sphere because I like the freedom of starting from a sphere and like just like pull shapes around and move things. But like for sure, C-spheres are very useful. It's just different tools for different like methods of doing the same thing, basically. ZBrush is like that in many ways. It lets you do a lot with the same thing in many different ways. So I'm noticing that it's starting to be very hard to sculpt at this resolution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat, because it's supposed to be really small, but what I'm going to do is just like make it bigger, remesh it, and then make it smaller again. Yeah, exactly, freestyle. I like freestyling stuff. I like to freestyle sculpt a lot. This guy started from a sphere, the main one. Well, I'm trying. Thank you. Thanks, man. No, I usually, when I finish a piece, I usually don't like it. I would say like 90% of the time I don't like it. And 80% of the time I feel like it's incomplete. I feel like I can keep working on it. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle, definitely. I'm trying not to get too attached to stuff. And that only happens when you sculpt and sculpt and sculpt. So I'm going to scale this one. And this is a cool trick. What I would used to do before, it would be like a transpose to move all the subtools at the same time. In this case, it's just the body and the eyes. But another cool trick, we don't have to use transpose. It's just to activate this, click on this thing. We call it the pizza boxes. I don't know what they're, like just this little ticks thing. And then go through the subtools as if you're just selecting them. And if you see, everything else is just like grayed out. And I can just move these ones around. Very easy. So what I'm going to do right now to create the rest of the creature is to separate it into polygroups. So I'm going to separate the head. Like this. And then the tail again. And then from the torso, separate the legs. Maybe another color so it's easier to read. We need to erase this mask. Okay. Same with this ones. And then finally I'm going to do with the fingers, well, the hand and the fingers, because that's gonna give me, I hope, whoops, this mask was not correct. That's gonna give me some structure for the fingers, I hope. To create the polygroup, to create a mask, you click Control and then just paint the mask on top. And then when you have a mask, if you click Control W, it's going to create a polygroup out of that mask and erase the mask. So it's a really easy way to just create polygroups faster. I also need to clean up here. So take this for example. I'm gonna do the hand thing. Another polygroup, and then just every finger is gonna be its separate polygroup. I hope the resolution is enough. Yeah, it's but we'll see. And there's really no reason to do this. I'm just showing how you can remesh things and have like sort of clean-ish topology, but I'm pretty sure we don't need to do this for the fingers. Just having the arms is enough, but we'll try it anyway. It's Control W for polygroups. The silhouette window, this one? Oh, it's really big. I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure it's on draw. I don't remember where it was. It's like it's a new feature, and I think oh my, where it was? Where was it? Here. If you go to Preferences, Thumbnail, it's here. It's a thumbnail. You can have it as a silhouette or an actual window of the thing. I prefer just to have the silhouette. Oh my god. And then you can change the size, the background, etc. So the size you can also change it just by dragging it. It's really useful. I would recommend to have it. I don't have a Discord server, although it's in my plans. It's just that I'm a member of a couple of servers, and I don't have the time or the energy sometimes to check all the boards and go through all the messages. I don't interact much on Discord, so that's why I don't have one right now, but a couple of people have asked me that already, so it's in my plans. It's just I don't have one right now. Let's just leave it at that. But yeah, it might be useful in the future. Who knows? You're welcome, Ryan. So let's hurry up so we can have time to finish this thing before the 2-hour mark. Okay, so you can remesh things pretty easily if you have polygroups, because they would serve like a natural barrier for things. So if you go to Series Mesher, there's a couple of things you need to put, like keep groups. And for this one, I'll just leave the target poly count like that, but I'm gonna change the adaptive size to 75. The higher it goes, the higher that number goes, the best the polygons adapt to the shape. The lower you go on that number, the more uniform polygons you're gonna have, but the less they're going to adapt to the shape. So if you go lower, you're gonna have more square-ish polygons, but less shape definition. And if you go higher, you're gonna have more rectangular polygons, but better shape definition. So let's go with 1 because I don't know, it doesn't matter, the number, it really doesn't matter. And then just see remesh and see what happens. Is there a way to uniformly distribute edges, vertices at the border of a normal plane without thickness? I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Do you have an example for that? So, okay, we did the remesh and we can see if we turn on the wire. By creating the polygroup, we get a natural border here, same as here, right? We have the arms. This looks good. And then we have each finger, which is, I mean, it's not clean topology, but we have each finger, so that's good. This is good for what we need. We don't need anything else. I'm just gonna leave it like that. And turn on the eyes. So this is supposed to be a smallish creature, but for like working sake, I'm just gonna keep building it at this size. And then here, this is just like the fun part. This is what I was talking about earlier. You have really basic shapes. This is pretty much just the main shapes, and then you can start going like subdividing it, and then you get a little bit more resolution, and then try and work on that resolution until you can no longer show anything, and then after that just see remesh again. I mean subdivide again. But like I said, these are gonna be like super simple creatures. Imagine like an actual axolotl, which is like a really basic shape. It's just like a worm with tiny arms. There's really not much to it. They have this fin, but that's it. Oops. This, for example, this is something that happens also a lot, and I want to talk about it. I was trying to move it with a snake hook brush, which is a bit more, like a way more, like way stronger than just the move brush. But I wanted to create a clean shape with the fin. But by doing this, I just accidentally created like a wavy or wobbly pattern, and I sort of like this. Sometimes you're going to be working with an intention, and then the actual program sometimes gives you like a happy accident, and you can run with, and it's really cool. So I'm gonna leave it like that because I'm actually not doing like an actual axolotl. It's not supposed to be a real creature. It's like a fantasy version of that creature. And then the other thing is like the big deity, I guess. And this is probably the way I'm most comfortable working, but I start doing everything from spheres. I find just like super easy to do. And then we can just subdivide, rotate around, duplicate, not that one, but this one. Duplicate. Sometimes you end up having triangles after zero mesh. There's a couple of ways you can fix that. You can go into another 3D software and clean it up manually, or you can just try and remesh it again. Just what I would do before starting to remesh anything in ZBrush is to save first, and then probably duplicate whatever it is you're trying to. Or yeah, with SimModeler you can also fix it. But I'm trying to say, like, before remeshing anything, save and duplicate the subtool so you have like a backup. And then try different things. Like, try and make the settings as precise as possible so you don't have triangles. Or if you have, that they don't really matter. My guess is that if a triangle really bothers you that much with ZRemesh, you probably should be remeshing manually, like with a manual topology. Because usually what I use ZRemesh for is just to give me clean and low definition geometry to work with. I don't really care that much about loops and clean topology. And if it has a triangle, it doesn't really matter for me. But if it does for you, you should probably do it manually. But yeah, that would be like my recommendation. So you have, this is probably too much. I'm gonna delete this one. So you have like these little creatures now. And then we can imagine them like swimming all around this guy, right? And so this is probably the last thing I'm gonna do right now, because there's really not much else to detail on this guy. Okay, what did I do? I screwed something up. Hold on. Okay, yeah. The little one is not supposed to be detailed at all. It's just going to be like maybe a couple of wrinkles here and there. But it's really not supposed to be detailed at all. It's this one. This guy is the main one. So Probably next stream I'm gonna start with a poly paint, which is going to be fairly simple as well. Actually, let me. I'm gonna create a folder for this. So you can put all the stuff in here. Turn it off for now. So next stream, I'm probably just going to start with the poly painting, and then afterwards the pose. And once I have that, I'll just maybe add a couple more elements, such as like maybe some rocks, a couple of plants, just to build like a scene, and then we'll go from there. Like I'm pretty. This is an interesting piece because I've mostly been working this only on streams, so the progress has been slow. But I'm happy that I finally finished the body, and then I can move on to other things, and to start like building the composition and all of that. Yeah, it's like a god, axolotl. I'm actually not. I'm not sure how to say that word in English. It comes from. I mean, in Spanish we just say ajolote because the X it's pronounced like a J. But it's definitely inspired in the ajolotls. So I'm just like saying it the same way. Like a salamander. Just showing the rest of the model for people who haven't seen it. Can I show the poly mesh on my model? Yes. It looks like this. Also, a good reason to retopologize stuff is because of performance. So if you have a very dense stuff, a very dense mesh, you can always remesh it. So when you're working, like for example, rotating the camera or zooming, you can notice how it always goes into a lower subdivision level. This is easier for the computer to handle. So I can have like 19 million whatever active points. But since I have subdivision levels, it's easier. What happens if I delete all the lower subdivision levels and I stick just with like the highest one? Then you notice when I rotate the camera, it's much slower. So it becomes like a really annoying to work with. Like the zoom takes a lot of time. It pulls you out of the flow of things. So I would really recommend to have subdivision levels always. Even if it's just like doing like a dynamic sculpt, if you're going to at least like paint it and do stuff with it, just try and optimize the performance of the mesh. That would be my tip. Ah, ¿qué onda aquí? Qué chido. Sí, soy de México, entonces a veces campechaneo entre los dos idiomas. ¿Qué tranza, chamo? ¿Qué más? ¿Qué dice la vida? For streaming, I'm using OBS. I'm using a plugin. Yeah, there's a couple of things you can do with OBS. Like, there's actually a lot of things you can do with OBS. But basically, the way it works is OBS is like a hub where you plug in stuff. So like, for example, I'm plugging the webcam and then the window of ZBrush, and then there's like a link that I'm pulling from a website that embeds the chat into the stream so you guys can see it. But I also have, like, since I'm sculpting, I'm not seeing the same thing you are seeing. I'm just seeing my ZBrush. But I also have a version of the chat that's like a floating window that's always on top of my ZBrush. So that in that way I can read the comments without looking at the other screen. Because before I used to do that, I had the chat on the other screen. But since my monitors are so far apart, I would constantly be doing this. and I just like have this chat here, and it's like it's easier. Yeah, don't rely too much on Dynamesh. Dynamesh is a trap. I feel like Dynamesh is it makes people think that they don't need to worry about resolution, and you don't for sculpting, but you need to worry about resolution for performance. So try and remesh things once in a while. It will help you optimize the whatever it is that you're sculpting. I think S7, it depends on the model. It really depends. You can have as many as 15 subdivisions sometimes, but I guess like it depends on the end result. Like try and go backwards from it. Like let's say you want to have 30 million polygons, or like 30 million active points in the end, right? And every time you subdivide, you multiply the number by 4. So if we go from like backwards, you start with 30 million. So I have 30,000, 30 million. I pulled up the calculator here. You have 30 million. And oh, what happened? Yeah. And then just divide that by 4. That's 1 level. Do it again. That's 2 levels. 3, 4, 5, 6 levels, and then we have 7,300. We do it like one more time, and then we have 1,800. So like, let's say if you aim to have a mesh, a base mesh of around 2,000 polygons, you know that you would take 7 subdivision levels to reach around 30 million. That's a better way, in my opinion, to think about how many subdivisions should I have and whatnot, because it really depends on performance and what your end goal is. It's not really useful if I tell you, oh, you should have 5 subdivision levels always, because it really depends. So yeah. Ay, qué chido aquí. ¿De qué parte de México? Yo soy del DF, aquí de la Mexico City. Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it, man. Glad you liked it. Alex, saludos hasta España. Bienvenido. No, you shouldn't use Dynamesh when you don't have resolution. You should lower that. You should use Dynamesh when you're starting to build stuff. When you don't want to have restrictions on resolution and on shapes and stuff like that. But afterwards, like when you pretty much build it, you should remesh, in my opinion, to ease on the performance. Sinaloa, qué chido. Probablemente vaya a Mazatlán el próximo mes. Viaje familiar. Vamos a ver. Anyways, so I'm gonna stop for today. Thank you so much, guys, again, for tuning in, for asking so many questions. I think the discussion today was really cool. The whole anatomy and evolution thing. I'm going to transpose the set. Just gonna make it smaller. Like the little creature sun. Yeah. Sí, ya sé, la CDMX, como odio ese nombre. Como yo vivo toda mi vida aquí, para mí sigue siendo el DF, pero no me gusta. Es mucha confusión, sobre todo para indicar dirección, porque está ciudad y después entidad, y entonces es el mismo nombre para los dos. Es un desmadre. No me gusta. Pero bueno. Anyways, thank you so much, guys. Take care, everyone. Yeah, no, for 3D printing, you actually have to make things watertight, but that's like another thing. Maybe a topic for another video, another stream, sorry. So, yeah. yeah, thanks everyone. Take care. I think you can see my socials on the stream. You can reach me on my ArtStation Instagram, Facebook. I don't use Twitter as much, but I'm trying to. And I haven't used Twitch as much lately, but I'm also trying to. So if you guys want to reach me through any of those socials, feel free to send me a message. I always try to respond. If you have any questions or comments, thank you so much again. And I'll stream again in 2 weeks if you guys are interested. We'll try and finish this guy eventually. Okay, thanks everyone. Take care.